This video is for the Survival Seeds 2025 collab, which is hosted by the Vineyard Chicks. It's co-hosted by Charles over at Bushcraft Family, as well as Lisa and Jesse over at Lazy Days. A few weeks back, I learned about seed snails, and I was so excited I couldn't sleep until I got up. It was about 3 a.m. when I planted my onions. It didn't take them long, and they sprouted up like this. I've tried growing onions many times in the past, but I never had much luck, so this was pretty exciting. But this time, just around the time my onions started flopping over, I thought they were going to die. The Vineyard Chicks came out with a video showing how to trim the onions, and that seemed to be the thing that I needed to know, because they're doing great now. And I had a lot of flavor to the last few soups I made. I also winter sowed some out on my balcony, and as you can see, a few of them are coming up. There's some other things coming up, and last year I grew purslane in this container. Purslane is a weed, and I've probably been pulling it out and tossing it out for years. But as it turns out, it's probably the most nutritious thing I've ever grown in my garden. When I first learned about it, I had a lot of trouble finding it. Then one day I was walking through a strip mall and I found some growing between a crack in the sidewalk. It had just rained the night before, but I reached down and pulled it and it came right out by the root. So I brought it home and I planted it in this container. And I had a lot of it. It kept me fed all last summer and into the fall. I hope it's a good companion plant for onions, because if it's not, these onions are going to have to find a new place to go. I also winter sowed some beets. I wasn't sure if it was going to be a little too early, but they seem to be coming up fine. Here's what my early Cal Wonder bell peppers looked like last week. And here's how they look now. I thought I had planted 5 seeds. I usually do, but I ended up with 6 plants. So 2 of the seeds must have been stuck together, but that's okay. I'll take 6. I looked it up, and when these peppers are ripe, they turn red. Now, years ago, my oncologist told me to always pick the red pepper because it has cancer-fighting properties in it. But to keep your peppers producing longer, pick them right before they're completely red, because if you let it ripen, they'll stop producing. The 6 tomatoes closest to the camera are my Roma tomatoes from Survival Seeds. They're coming along pretty nicely. And again, I planted 5 seeds, but I have 6 plants. All 5 of the hyssop seeds that I planted have germinated. And I planted this one up into hydroponics. I planted way more oregano than I really need, and it seems to be doing fine. But my kids said they'd be happy to take some. 2 of the 5 lemon balm seeds that I planted germinated, but they shriveled up and died. I'm planning to wait until Memorial Day to plant my green beans outside, and I should probably start that pumpkin pretty quick. In the first video, I mentioned that I was going to grow parsnips as my 7th seed, but I couldn't find the seeds. And then this guy moved in and decided to raise a family on my balcony. This is too close to the bin that I was planning to plant the parsnips in, so I won't be winter sowing them this year. So my 7th seed is now microdwarf tomatoes. I planted 5 seeds in this container, and only 3 came up. They're ready to be transplanted. This variety grows to be about 7 inches tall and has little orange cherry tomatoes on it. These seeds are actually those that I harvested from a plant I grew before. This variety is called Jacqueline. It grows to be about 12 inches tall and it has yellow cherry tomatoes on it. I planted 5 seeds, but only one came up, and these were seeds that I harvested from a plant that I grew before too. I moved it into hydroponics. It's in a spaghetti sauce jar for now, but later on I'll move it into a juice bottle. The 3 plants in the middle are a variety called Curly Kale Long. They're called that because the leaves look kind of like curly kale, and the word long comes from the unique shape of these little red tomatoes. These plants grow to be about 10 inches tall. Last year I took part in the Indiana Backyard Gardeners seed swap, and I asked for kale. I ended up getting 9 different varieties of kale. I didn't know that there was more than one variety of kale. There are in fact over 100. If you think you don't like kale, I think you might want to try some of these varieties. Here I have lacinato kale, white Russian kale, and red Russian kale growing. These varieties are quite tender, and if you like growing your own lettuce, you'll love these. I'm also growing some basil, and this is what it looked like a few weeks back. I planted 5 seeds, but only 3 came up. I potted up 2 of them into soil yesterday and 1 into hydroponics. I accidentally spilled the seeds when I was planting these spoon tomatoes, and I ended up with a lot more than I needed. I up-potted most of them into a seed snail, and at the same time I planted some into toilet paper rolls. I think they did a little bit better in the seed snails. I cut off the end of my celery and a head of romaine lettuce and a chunk of ginger that was starting to sprout to see if I could grow some of that. The lettuce started to sprout, but I let it dry out and I had to toss it. The ginger hasn't changed a whole lot, but the sprouts are getting a little bigger and greener. But the celery is really starting to grow. I've done this in the past, and the last one grew to be about 3 feet tall with very thin stalks. But those thin stalks tasted pretty good. 3 of the 5 jalapenos that I started germinated, and I should have transplanted them at this point. They've got their second leaves. They weren't getting the nutrition that they needed in that peat pellet, and the smallest one shriveled up and died. The 2 bigger ones started to turn yellow, and I finally potted them up yesterday. I'm not sure if they're really showing much improvement, but it might take a while. I'll give it some time. A lot of my peppermint seeds germinated, but one plant really took off. I was able to save that one and 2 others, but the rest shriveled up. Thank you for watching. If you like this video, please like, share, subscribe. And even if you don't, leave a comment because who knows? You just might win a prize. Have a great day.